So here's a comment I got in a conversation today with a consultant who's trying to do the thing that we help people do, which is move beyond their warm network of trusted colleagues and referral sources, which is often not delivering sufficient volume, and start to build trust with strangers and ultimately build pipeline with strangers after building trust, right? Trust comes first and then pipeline and deals come second. And the comment that this person made was, look, I'm getting conversations and then they go cold. They stall, they don't buy, they defer, they delay, and quite often they end up going with another firm for a variety of reasons. And I think what's very interesting about this, there's a whole number of reasons why somebody might not buy, and that's really not what today's conversation is about. Might be a separate conversation. But one of them is that when a typical B2B client begins a buying process, they almost always have a preferred choice in mind. They've got a front runner. And depending on the data that you look at, 80 to 95% of the time, that front runner wins the deal. That preferred choice wins the deal. It's good news or bad news? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it depends if you're that front runner or not. And I think the question really becomes, how do you become that person, right? Because it's one thing to be in the position of the person that you were speaking with, who it sounds like isn't, right? Who's losing out to these other organizations. But what if you are that person, right? What if you are that organization? What if you are the company that is already top of mind when the search starts? And I think the good news about that is it's not as hard as you think to become the name that's at the top of the list before the list gets built.
Well, I think even just the question changes now, which is to me the most interesting part about this conversation. If the question before was that people are asking was, how do I close more deals? How do I win more clients? Now, I think, armed with this information, the question ought to be, how do I become the front runner?
Mm-hmm.
How do I position myself as the preferred choice with the clients I want to work with, acknowledging that they will go through a buying process. There will be often a buying committee. And I don't have complete control over that. I don't have complete control over who they buy from and when they buy. But I can be confident that if I am cemented in the right people's minds as the preferred choice, and there's a bias towards me at the beginning, I'm going to win a good number of deals.
Mm-hmm.
That's a completely different question than how do I close more deals?
Yeah. And what's really interesting about it is I think it really reflects how you perceive yourself, right? Because I would suggest it's actually sort of a two-step process, right? It's not just how do I win more deals to how do I become this front runner. Actually, most people start at how do I stop losing deals? Then they need to shift into how do I win deals? And then they shift into how do I become the front runner? And if you think about the questions and you look behind them, there's something really interesting about the way that that person is perceiving themselves and their business. Because the first, how do I stop losing deals to these other magical companies that keep appearing and swooping in and taking away my prospects? There's something very scarcity minded about that. There's something very, there's something about that just has a complete lack of agency, right? I'm just kind of sitting here waiting to see what happens. Then you shift to how do I win more? That becomes more intentional, right? More forward looking, more, okay, how do I take a bit of control in this exercise? And then if you shift to, okay, how do I become the front runner? That's a whole different ballgame, right? That is, I know that I'm the right person for a lot of these folks. How do I just make sure that I get myself in front of them so they know that as well? So I think there's a real sort of, self-view issue, self-image issue that plays through all of this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, and I don't know why my brain's going here, but it's going here, so I'm going to take it there. When you think about athletes and my experiences with young athletes, children, youth, right? My kids are athletes. There's some very interesting advice on athleticism. There's at the one level, there's like sport specific stuff. So my kids play hockey, so it's do these shooting drills, do these stick handling drills, do these skating drills. Okay, fine. And then there's like some more strategic stuff, like how to think about the game, right? Hockey IQ, etc. And then there's folks who are like, if you want your athlete to perform better, they've got to sleep more and eat more, right? It's like that's the root of it. Because no amount of hockey IQ or tactical practice is going to support you if you're not sleeping enough and you're not consuming enough calories to perform, right? And that's what came to mind when you were speaking, because like the other two questions are low level relatively and also produce suboptimal solutions. So if we start with that question around how do I lose less deals? Well, where you're going to go with that question is, why are they choosing others over me? Mm-hmm. And where you're going to get that information from? The client. Is it the truth? Is
Not
it accurate?
Very reliable narrator. Yeah.
Is it a reliable conclusion to lean on? Will you get any meaningful signals? So in this example that I was sharing with you, this person concluded it was price. Mm-hmm. Why? Because one or two people said we went with a cheaper option. Now, if that's the focus, how do I lose less deals? This person in this example, which is not uncommon, is going to slash their price to come in lower and cheaper than other people. Suboptimal for many reasons and probably missing the point. If the question to your point is, okay, how do I win more deals? There's some productive things there that could come up, right? Case studies, my sales process, my discovery call process, the questions that I ask, how I differentiate my services. Yeah, these are not terrible questions. These are productive questions, more agency to your point, right? And the better question is, how do I stack the deck in my favor? How do I stack the odds in my favor? So all this other stuff just falls into place. And I don't even need to worry about it as much because I know they want to work with me. 80 to 95%, depending on whose study you look at, and there's a few out there, 80 to 95% of the time, the preferred choice, the front runner, is chosen. And if we do a little bit of a segue into psychology, we can understand why this is, right? Confirmation bias. So what is it about a front runner? Like, it's not that I just don't change my mind as a buyer. It's that the front runner is a front runner for a reason. And those reasons inform how I think about the problem and align me with the front runner's approach methodology. Now I compare everybody else to that front runner. In other words, they set the criteria. And if you don't match the criteria as well as they do, which they set, you're going to lose.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And, we talked about sort of these three questions, these three phases. And I think it's also worth discussing what comes after you get to this place, right? To your point, when you stack the deck, what you now get into is a position where you're the one making the decisions, right? You're not just barely trying to grab onto enough deals to hit, your target so you can pay your mortgage and feed your kids. Now you're in a position where you are seen as the front runner. You have become the expert. You are the one against which everyone else is measured. And that puts you in a position where now you're deciding, right, who you work with. You're deciding what the best relationships are going to be, and you're deciding where the best results are going to come from. And, that's really the dream that we're all in business to.
It's funny. I was talking to another consultant today, and she started off with, I'm not sure I'm the right fit for you. Now, most people, when they're thinking lower level, like, how do I lose less deals or win more deals, are going to try to objection handle. This is an objection. I got to find out where is it coming from and how do I overcome it? Let's objection handle it, right? And I'll tell you one thing. People know when they're being objection handled. right? It doesn't go very well typically
Nope.
because they can tell you're handling their objection versus actually trying to get to the crux of, is it actually a fit, right? If you're asking the question, well, who do I do my best work with? Who's a great fit to work with me? Who do I want to be the preferred choice for? What am I looking for? Which is the question that we're asking. We can have an honest conversation about it. So we did. Let's talk about it because maybe it's not a fit. Maybe this is a deal that we should not win. Maybe we're happy to lose this one because we're just not perfectly aligned to work together. But you're never going to be able to have that conversation if your focus is too granularly on, I need a deal tomorrow. I'm losing too many deals. Why am I losing them? I need to overcome objections and close more deals. That's the wrong set of questions and wrong set of activities.
Yeah. So the question is, how do you get there, right? And the great news is, and we've said this several times on several different episodes, is that not a lot of people do this really well. So it's not like you need to become some kind of marketing genius superstar to be able to do this, right? You just need to be a little bit better than everyone around you. And we can tell you from talking to a lot of people and making a lot of observations in the market, that doesn't take as much as you would think. And what it does take is a consistent effort, in the right places with the right people who have the right problem. Which I know sounds simpler than it may feel in practice, but that's really what we're talking about, is just consistently, being out there with an opinion, being clear about what you do, being clear about who you are, being clear about who you help. And that gets you to a place where now, the moment that someone has that problem and they want to solve it, you immediately come to mind.
When you think about the client's perspective, which you should always think about the client's perspective, when they encounter a problem and they come to the place where they decide, okay, we probably need to hire someone to help fix this, right? Which is a whole other conversation. But let's just say they get there. The question they ask themselves is not, who is a relatively good fit for this? Where can I find the most average consultant with the most average track record to possibly be able to do this among the other 10 things that they can do? Mm-hmm. Where can I find someone who's okay, so, maybe? No one asks that question, right? The question we're asking is, who's this for? Mm-hmm. Who does this? Does anyone specialize in this? Are there people that solve this specific problem? And how would we know when we found them?
Yeah.
And what kind of signal are we looking for? And so on and so forth, right? Like, I want the best possible people solving my problems, not the mediocre, not the average, not the person who's done other things that are maybe impressive, but haven't done this. And so the honest answer, and it's the one that people struggle with the most, but your struggle doesn't change the fact that this is the truth, right? It's a process of making deliberate, strategic, narrowing choices such that the right, and communicating those choices and that focus and telling the market, here's who I'm for, so that when they find you, they see themselves in that description. And in the absence of that, you could be the front runner of people that have already worked with you. That's fine. That's certainly possible. But if you want to be the front runner of strangers, then they've got to see evidence that you're clearly specialized in solving the problem that they're facing for clients who are just like them. Otherwise, somebody else will be the front runner.